Hello and welcome to the PvE-Gamer. Today we are talking about Flesh and Blood and speculate a bit on player versus environment. And when we talk about player versus environment, we have to talk about this guy, Genis Mr. Wotchuneed. Mr. Wotchuneed seems to fulfill a perfect support role, and we don't know yet what PvE will look like. And whether it will be true PvE, that means no one has to pick up the deck for the opponent, or if it will be versus PvE like in the World of Warcraft TCG, where someone had to play the antagonist in the game. Personally, I am very much hoping for true PvE, but this has some challenges which LSS needs to overcome, but we will talk about that in a later video. Today, we will talk about the potential of Genis Wotchuneed. If we look at a card like Cash-In, we can see Cash-In is a very nice card because people play it with Crown and have a gold token at the beginning of the game and then draw 2 cards. Drawing cards is obviously very good because card draw is also rather limited in Flesh and Blood, and card draw gives you more resources as well as options for affecting the current game state. So we know that Cash-In is an interesting card for players because sometimes it makes its way into blitz decks or classic constructed in several builds. So card drawing seems to be very good. So if we take a look at Genis, Mr. Wotchuneed, we see once per turn action, 2 resources, each other hero may put a card from their hand on the bottom of the deck. If they do, they draw a card and you create a silver token. If you gain no silver this way, draw a card and go again. So for 2 resources, everyone on your party gets a sink below effect. And this is a classic role for support character. We see this also in other games like the Marvel Living Card game, like Arkham Horror. You can build for certain support roles. And what is usually the way of a support role? If you play a supporter, you're helping other people with resources and cards. So you help them to gain resources, to gain more cards, to affect the game state, and sacrifice your own effectiveness on direct damage or blocking damage against the PvE environment in favor of giving your partners more options. And especially with an ability like this, it gets better the more people are in the group, because if you have 3 players, if you have 4 players who play with you, these effects tend to get stronger. For example, in the Marvel Living Card game, if you play a supporter and there's a certain card, Mariah Hill, I once wrote an article on breaking this card with Doctor Strange and trying to draw as many cards as possible for each player in a single round. If you play with 1 friend, each player draws a card. This is of course less effective as if you're playing with 2 or 3 friends. And there's also his legendary equipment, which you can pick up right now for almost no price. It's hilarious how cheap this card is, and you should definitely consider picking it up. There's History Pack 2 coming out. There's perhaps an Everfest Unlimited. It might see another price drop, but if PvE comes out before Silver Palms, or if PvE comes out before we get more card availability for this card, the price might rise. And I think especially in PvE, this could be a total powerhouse, because at the start of each other hero's turn, if they have less life than you, they may draw a card. If they do, you create a silver token. So it even has synergy. The other heroes each draw a card, and then they create a silver token if they have less life than you. So our duty when watching Genis Wotchuneed is having more life than other players. And this is also a thing where you might be inclined to pick up some cards which might become interesting in PvE in the future, just because they gain your life. I'm not saying this will be the best strategy, but I could imagine that they might come in handy. The good thing is, most of the stuff, or all of the stuff, are commons and rares, so they're usually easy to come by. If you want them black bordered or rainbow foil, you should be able to pick them up rather cheap, perhaps with the exception of Sigil of Solace. But the card in itself, so the cards you need for playing, if you're not keen on black bordered foil stuff, you should be able to come by these cards rather easily. So first of all, we have Oasis Respite, which is also very popular in PvE. It prevents 4 damage, so if you don't lose life as Genis, you obviously tend to have more life than other players. Even if you have less life than each other hero, you may gain 1 life, and this fits perfectly with your hero ability. Sigil of Solace, no surprises here, gain 3 life. The Healing Ball gains you 3 life. And what might be interesting too in the future is the Healing Potion, because perhaps there is a moment where you're not yet inclined to gain that life because you have some game state, or you know the opponent will do something that will affect the board state, but you want to have one less card in hand, so you draw up more cards. And so you can put out the Healing Potion, have the item on the table, and then trigger the potion. Also, this works with Knick-Knack, Bric-a-Brac and other tutors who can fetch potions. Perhaps we will see more of that in the future with the Alchemist. So, all in all, Genis Wotchuneed might be a very interesting character in PvE. That was a short spotlight on this character. The hero, the playmat, legendary equipment, everything is very cheap at the moment, but this is one of the characters I see in a top slot of being a supporter, along with any players who can play, who are light heroes, can make use of the library and play yellow stripes, because that will also be something that nets you very much card advantage when playing a library. But we can talk about this another time. Today, Genis Wotchuneed, the merchant. Perhaps merchants will get more popular when we see the PvE mode. See you next time.